Hey everyone, welcome to part 3 of the writing process series. We've done brainstorming, we've done selecting. Now let's get to the core of the writing process, which is, you guessed it, actually writing. Now if you feel like you've been working hard, you've been creating great ideas with those first 2 steps, the writing process might be easy. And you might be in a better position to create good ideas as you start to paragraph your work. If you've been struggling with the previous parts, that's okay, because we're going to be talking about a basic 2-step cycle that you can move through repeatedly as you write your essay. So here we go. Here's the basic 2-step cycle that I really want you to think about as you write your paragraphs, as you work with the material that you brainstormed and you selected. So, go back to the selection stage, check out all the sticky notes you have. And on these sticky notes, you'll have pieces of evidence, whether it's a particular image or a particular quote, and you're going to perform this basic 2-step cycle with each piece of evidence. Here's the first step. First, you really want to free write on that evidence, that material that's on the sticky notes. Maybe about 4 minutes, that's what I would do. Some people might do 6. Some people might do 8. It really depends on how much you can free write in the moment. As you free write, you're going to want to just ask, what does this evidence prove? What is interesting about it? Now you have another set of sticky notes based on ideas, and you can use those as a platform. Those are the connections. Those are the bridge statements you made in the brainstorming and the selection process. And if you find yourself ever getting stuck during this free writing process, you really just want to write as much as you can. Write. If you find yourself getting stuck, feel free to just rewrite something you've already written. Just try to make it a slightly different version. You'll find your idea developing that way. After that time's up, you're going to want to move into the next step of the 2-step cycle. And that step is to evaluate. So how many interpretations do you have? What was really interesting about what you wrote? What is something that shows appreciation of the writer's choices or your knowledge and understanding of that particular piece of evidence and how it works on the page or in the passage you're working with? Now, what's crazy about this 2-step cycle is that there's actually a secret 3rd step in the basic 2-step cycle. And that secret 3rd step is repeat. So you're going to want to go back after you evaluate and redo some of your free writing. Then you want to go back and look at that new free writing and evaluate it. And you're going to keep doing that until you shape your paragraphs into something that has that basic form we're working with: interpretation, evidence, and analysis. So if I were free writing on this particular point from the Ziegfeld Follies page I've been working with, that Florian Ziegfeld is dressed as a businessman, and I'd write like, what is significant about this? What's interesting about this? And I, in the selection video, I mentioned all my thoughts about gender and how the man is kind of like orchestrating this particular event. I would write as much as I can in about 4 minutes about this, and I would write nonstop. And if I had to stop, I would just rewrite something I had already written with a little more detail or just different words. I just try to get ideas onto paper. Then after that 4, 5, 6 minutes, and I'd always, like, if I'm going to do 5 minutes, I would do it for every single idea or every single moment. Like I do another 5 minutes for women dressed as peacocks. But for the Ziegfeld image, I would look at that free write and I'd evaluate it. And I'd ask myself several questions. Like, what does my free write prove? Here, I'm looking for how many different ideas do I have in this free write? And then I would ask, what ideas or interpretations are most interesting? Once I answer these 2 questions, I'd take one of those interpretations, put it at the start of a new paragraph, and then go back to that free write and start to form it into our favorite three letters: interpretation, evidence, and analysis. I'd put another 4 minutes on the clock. I would have the interpretation already there. And then I'd take that 4 minutes or that 5 minutes to write out the evidence. And then, most importantly, write as much analysis of that evidence as possible that would prove the interpretation. After that second round of free writing, I'll go back to do a little evaluation. Reread the paragraph that I just wrote. How many ideas do I have in there? Do I just stick with that one interpretation? And how well do I analyze the evidence? I would make adjustments. Then I would pick another idea that I created in that original free write, bring it up as an interpretation, and then keep going forwards with the free writing and the evaluating. And this is just for this particular moment in my brainstorming and selecting generation. And I might find myself doing that several times for the Ziegfeld moment, several times for the women dressed as birds and peacock moment, and of course, several times for pieces of evidence that I draw from the text. I'll be generating a lot of material, and a lot of it won't be going into my essay. But this is how you're going to build your essay full of interesting ideas that follow the pattern of IEA. At the end of this, you'll probably have several paragraphs for each of these sticky notes, or whatever sticky notes you create and you keep through the brainstorming and selection process. You'll have several paragraphs for, in my case, women dressed as birds and peacocks, several paragraphs as men dressed as in business wear, several paragraphs about the waist image, and several paragraphs about men being dressed as police. And at this point, you can think about which ideas work best together and how. What order should I put these various paragraphs in? You put them in that order once you answer those questions, and you have yourself a draft of an essay. It's not going to be the best essay, but it sets you up for that next step, which is revision. Stay tuned for that video coming in a day or two. So here are these final 2 steps once you get to go through that basic 2-step cycle. As I mentioned, select those paragraphs, arrange them. You have a draft. You don't have an opening or a closing paragraph, but you have your main body. And you have in your mind, and you can even write this down, a clearer vision of what your thesis will be after going through this process. If you have any questions or you get stuck in part of this process and want me to help you through the process of free writing and evaluating, just let me know and we can talk through in class. Thanks so much. See you guys soon.